Okay, so today's lesson we're going to be factoring trinomials. We need to remember how to factor by GCF, which is right up here. GCF is 5y of this particular trinomial. And then what's left over is 3x squared plus xy plus 4. When we factor trinomials, is what the lesson's all about. Trinomials tend to have a standard form, which looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. And we happen to call these trinomials, when we factor them, I am. The I just stands for the Roman numeral 1, because when we're factoring these trinomials, the coefficient of the x squared term has to be 1. So that's what the I stands for. The coefficient of x squared term is a 1. The A stands for adding. We need to find a number that's going to add to the coefficient of the middle term. And then what happens is for the M, that stands for multiply. And what we're trying to do here is find a number that's going to multiply to the coefficient of the last term. So basically how this works is above each problem that has a Roman numeral, that has the coefficient of x squared being 1, you're going to just write I am. This is going to help remind you that you need to find two numbers that add to the middle term, which is 3x, or multiply to the last term, which is 2. So we tend to do this. We say, okay, let me think of two numbers that are going to add to 3. At the same time, those two numbers are going to multiply to a 2. Well, the fact that they're multiplying to a positive, the signs have to be the same. And the same two numbers that are positive that multiply to 2 would be a 2 and a 1. And as it turns out, those same two numbers add to 3. So we've now found the two numbers that do that. And in terms of factoring, we're going to have two parentheses this time. And the only way to break down x squared evenly is to have an x times an x. And then what goes in the rest of the parentheses are those two factors that added to 3 and multiplied to 2. And they're both positive. So it's going to be plus 2 and plus 1. It doesn't matter the order that you put the parentheses in. I could have done x plus 1 and x plus 2. Bottom line, when you FOIL the answer back, you're going to get what you started with. So just to kind of show that to you the first time, if I were to FOIL back these guys, x squared plus 2x plus 1x plus 2, the final answer becomes x squared plus 3x plus 2. And that, in fact, was what the original polynomial started out as. The answer then, in this case, again, it does not matter which answer you use in terms of the parentheses. I'm just circling that top one because it's got the least amount of work on it. So let's see if we can then figure out what we do for this next one. So it's 1x squared plus 1x minus 42. And I'm going to write above it I am. So I have to add two numbers that are going to give me a positive 1. At the same time, I have to multiply those two numbers to give me a negative 42. So now the fact that they multiply to a negative, you want your signs to be different. As you start thinking of things that multiply to negative 42, you should come up with the fact that negative 7 and positive 7 and negative 6, where they multiply to negative 42, 7 and negative 6 add to 1. So you have to be careful of your signs. I almost made a mistake there because I was putting the negative sign with the bigger number, and that wouldn't have given me the right sum. Okay, so the two numbers that do this, so positive 7, negative 6. In terms of factoring, you're going to break yourself down into two parentheses. The only way for the x squareds to break is x times x, one in each parenthesis, and then you've got a positive 7 and a negative 6. Again, feel free to put negative 6 first and positive 7 next. It doesn't matter the order of the parentheses as long as the numbers and the signs are correct. Let's try another one. Excuse me. Very similar to the one that we just did. Now here's with the negative 1. So these are I ams. We're looking for two numbers that add to a negative 1. Just a little bit differently on the side. I'm looking for two numbers that add to negative 1. At the same time, they're going to multiply to negative 42. just a different way to set up your work. And I know those two numbers that do that. There's the -7 and the +6. So in terms of my answer, 1 parenthesis x minus 7, 1 parenthesis x plus 6, and I'm done. Let's IAM this guy. Again, I'm looking for two numbers that add to give me a 2, but multiply to give me a -35. Well, the signs have to be different. The bigger number has to be positive because I add to a positive, which means I want a +7 and a -5. There's my -35 product and my +2 sum. So in terms of my answer here, I've got x with the +7 and x with the -5. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this. If we IAM down here, I want to add to a -3, multiply to a -54. Again, I multiplied to a negative, so my signs have to be different. And then I want my bigger number, in this case, to be negative because of the way that my numbers multiply. So here I'm going to do -9 and +6. There's my -54 product and my -3 sum, which means my answer is going to be x with a -9 and x with the +6. Final answer. On the next one, what's different is, if you notice, you actually don't have a 1x squared. So we can't IAM this as is. So then we have to go back to what we know already. And what we have learned is GCF. So the first thing you're going to have to do is pull out your GCF. And the second thing you're going to end up doing is an IAM. So in terms of this particular problem, my GCF, what divides evenly into everything, is a 2. If a 2 comes out, what's left over is x squared plus 8x plus 12. What has to get done now is you're just going to IAM what's inside. So as I write IAM here, and then I think of what two numbers are going to add to give me an 8, but multiply to give me a 12, and then I come up with those being 6 and 2, both of them being positive. So then I can actually factor out the parentheses x plus 6 and x plus 2. But what you can't forget is there was a GCF that was pulled out to begin with, and that can't be lost in your answer. So what happens here is there's kind of three factors: the GCF outside of the two parentheses. Okay, so that should be enough to get you started on either the independent work or the homework.